guys. So I'm really excited about this. So the theme of the conference is the power of presence. And I do have to say, this is the first time we've ever had a pharma partner on stage. So we're going to quickly walk through kind of three themes today as we discuss. We're going to talk about education and investment, omnichannel and creative in the pharmaceutical space. So with that, quick introductions.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Jasmine Singer. I'm an Associate Director of Marketing at AstraZeneca.
Hi everyone, my name is Faryn Brown. I am the Vice President of Addressable Activation and Strategy at Helix.
Love it. So Jasmine, let's dive right in. How did we get here, right? So one of the largest respiratory brands that you guys represent ran its first national programmatic digital out-of-home campaign that accounted for 15% of its budget. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we're fortunate to have great partners with Helix, and we're always pushing each other for innovation, new ideas, and really expanding the way that we reach patients. And when we started talking about out-of-home, I think one of the initial challenges was, how are we gonna measure it? You know, as marketers, we're always being pressed on outcomes internally and measurement. And thankfully, Faryn had some good suggestions, and there was some change in the marketplace as far as how we could measure the campaign. And I think that between that and their overarching vision and strategy for the marketing campaign made it really easy for us to understand the vision and how it's gonna make an impact in our marketing strategy. So that was a big part of our journey here. Yeah.
So Faryn, you and I have known each other personally. I love this story too. So we've known each other for a little over 8 years. Obviously, what I'm so proud of you about is you went in and you said, like, we have the pharma client, I'm the agency, I need to dive deep into this. But that was 8 years ago when you began this journey, which is why I believe we're so excited that you're on stage. But obviously the evolution, to your point, the evolution of the medium has changed from the screen types to the opportunity to measure, the ability to overlay first-party data. How do you feel why AstraZeneca had a place to play in digital out-of-home?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a journey these past 8 years, but we've definitely seen the space grow and change a lot, I think, obviously having amazing partners like Jasmine. But I think there's two main reasons. The first being education, and then the second being that tech and measurement. So from the education side, two ways, so another double bullet point into that, but on the education side, not only educating the marketer, but also educating the space. So I think, you know, a lot of you in this room in terms of like being media owners and educating on the importance of having inventory available programmatically. The more that we have available, the more that we're then able to leverage all of the benefits of programmatic and include that within our full omnichannel strategy. Second, educating the marketer. I think Jasmine touched on this, but it really is a true partnership. So for us and all of the wealth of information that she has at AstraZeneca, understanding who our patient population is, what they're over-indexing against, what contextually is relevant to them, and then also the HCPs that we're trying, healthcare professionals, sorry, the healthcare professionals that we're trying to target. You know, where are they based? What matters to them? We have a big saying in pharma that I hate, but doctors are people too. And so how do we reach them in those blue jean moments? You know, when they're going out on the golf course or they're going with their family to go supermarket shopping, understanding how we disrupt their everyday lives. So that first piece, education, and then that second piece being measurement. How do we prove the success of it? So we say this a lot. But we try and test and learn as quickly as possible. So in pharma, quickly is very different than I think a lot of you in this room might be, you know, used to. Our frameworks there are definitely a few months as opposed to a few weeks. But we test and learn, and we fail quick, and that helps us adjust plans and adjust strategies to make sure that we are, you know, reaching those right patients in the moments that matter.
And I think that was a big part of it, was really digging into where the density of population is. I think that was really important because it's not like, you know, a grocery store where we can then quickly measure what the lift was in that area. You know, for a pharmaceutical product, you're looking at a national scale and a lot of different factors that go into the movement of that product. You have a massive sales team that's out there educating doctors every day. So because there's so many different factors involved, having that test control is important. So looking, and especially going where, you know, your patients are and looking at that density of population. For us, there are certain pockets of the country where we know incidence is very high, and there are a lot of patients who could use a better medicine and something that we have to offer. So we know that there's a real efficiency with out-of-home there because we're able to reach a lot of people in a quick period of time at an efficient cost. So I think that was really helpful. This was not meant to be a national play for us. And by looking at it that way, as far as that testing, we could see in those areas, are we seeing the lift? Are we seeing change in our new to brand prescriptions? And that was helpful as well. That was an important part of the puzzle. And being able to bring in Crossix from a measurement perspective, that gave us the confidence that we were going to the right places to reach the right people at the right time. And Faryn made a good point too. When we were thinking about it, it's amazing to be able to reach our patients, but also to your point, not only are we talking to doctors, we're also supporting our sales team. In pharma, they have a really hard job. They're out there educating every day, and to feel like they have the brand support behind them in the marketplace as they go out and they get out on the road and they see those billboards up, I think that's a real confidence booster for them too. So it really does benefit a lot of different sort of subsets for us at once.
Yeah, and what I hear, and I love so much, because there's this common misconception that we've just demystified. It's like agency just says what brand does, places the buy specifically and out of home. But again, Faryn educating herself, also finding commonality. I love the aspect, the last panel we heard a lot about measurement. But oftentimes we as out of home people, we misperceive what that comment means, right? It's like, well, here's the measurement company that we use. But instead, Faryn, you doing your homework, doing the education side of things and understanding who you felt comfortable with across X. Yes, we use Crossix across other media types. So touch on a tad on both sides, the agency side bringing it, but also on the brand side, the importance of finding commonality of people that you trust from the measurement.
Yeah, and I think that was a massive education. I think I called Faryn probably 3 times to make sure that I had exactly how this was going to be measured, so that when I go in-house and I have to explain this program and why we would repeat it and why it was successful, that I really have my facts down as I'm speaking to leadership and I'm selling this internally. So that was a really important piece of it, is exactly what is the test control? Exactly when you say lift, what does that mean? Exactly which HCP healthcare professionals are we impacting? So there was a lot of education from Faryn to me to make sure that I could really explain it concisely and impactfully, and that was really helpful.
And I think if in the room you don't know what Crossix is, it's the gold standard in pharma for measurement. And it's what Jasmine and team are super comfortable with, from display, from video, from TV. And so being able to speak that same language in digital out of home was really helpful for us to be able to tell that story and have that continuity. And I think going back to the part of educating some of our partners too, of understanding of using your agency teams to help provide additional measurement to support full digital out of home campaigns. So I think we've done a lot of path to conversion. Do we see that those who are exposed to digital out of home and then retargeting, are they quicker to come to site? We don't have those same metrics as Jasmine was saying of did they see this soda and then they went right to the store immediately and purchased it, and you're getting that real time feedback loop. So I think making sure that you're using your agency as well for them to help support you and get that additional, whether it's additional advanced analytics or strategies on the plan to help prove it out in more real-time metrics you could use as a proxy until that third-party measurement.
And that you've raised another good point that I think was something of an adjustment for me. So I have a background in OTC, consumer products, higher ed. Maybe not higher ed is not as relevant in this example, but with consumer products, you're very used to a very short cycle. You advertise, your sales go up or down. Hopefully they're going up, right? You put your brand out there, you see impact, and there's just a longer lead time with RX products where you have to get used to the fact that you're not just measuring in a short window, 30 days, you're measuring over the course of several months, because you think about that journey. And it takes 3-4 months before somebody is potentially taking action, and this is just one piece of a funnel, before they finally go and see their doctor and hopefully bring up this new product, this new medicine that could be helpful for them. So that was another thing to adjust to, is you can't just expect a sort of a one-to-one relationship of exposure to conversion. There's quite a lengthy lead time in there.
So perfect segmentation, my favorite word ever, omnichannel, consumer journey. So you both kind of stress the importance of the omnichannel approach. Can you kind of expand on how you feel digital out of home plays a pivotal role, I added the word pivotal, by the way, into AstraZeneca's campaigns?
Yeah, so with Pharma, digital out of home is a reminder ad. That's about all you can do with it. I mean, you should always be pretty concise and pithy with your creative on out of home, but we have an even shorter, more limited amount of things that we can say. We can basically say the brand name and maybe the ingredients. It's really limiting. So it is a layering tactic. It's a very important layering tactic, but we have to have an entire campaign around it, because our job is to educate, right? So if you have somebody who's struggling and is not on the right therapy, I believe our job as marketers is to get out in front of them and give them options. And in our case, it is clinically a better option for them. So we can't do that in a billboard. So that's the importance of an omni-channel campaign, really laying the groundwork ahead of time, maybe with CTV, that gives them the fuller 60-second picture of what the product does, its benefits, and then hopefully they see the billboard as that reminder. And then we follow up with them again with display and other media that again expands and builds on what the product can do for them. In our ideal world, this is somebody who maybe is on their way to a doctor's appointment. This is somebody who maybe is having a hard day and maybe saw the brand not too long ago, and this is just another touch point for them that reminds them that they should get on the horn and do something about it. So it's a really exciting part of a comprehensive plan. It cannot stand alone. It just doesn't have the power. Some of the names you see in pharma, you can't even Google those if you tried. So it really has to be layered, and ideally something that's clickable, that they can Google right then and there. But I think this serves as a really great way to catch them in a key moment throughout their day. Same with the doctors, right? They're driving into work, and maybe a few days ago their sales rep came by and talked about the product, and there we are again in front of them as they're going to work, reminding them that there's this option that they could be bringing to their patients.
Yeah, I'm sure some people in the room aren't the most happy with that response of saying, we see a billboard and then you're going to immediately take action. But I do think that is the reality, as much as we hope people will do that. Not everyone's going to walk by something, scan that QR code, fill out the form, and so forth. So I think for us, it was also a big understanding of moving the goalpost. Not everything is going to drive that same result. And I think specifically in pharma, understanding that. An example is, from a sensitive category, the HIV is more prevalent in the South. There's a lot of shame around it as well. And so one of our big learnings, understanding that there's a need in the South to have more and more testing be done. And for a campaign like that, we'd want to move that goalpost. The goalpost isn't going to get, a male in the South to all of a sudden change what the climate of the community is, and feel that they have empowered to go to their doctor and immediately ask for a script that they never have done before. But maybe in the South we move that goalpost, and instead we have that type of messaging there, and we're able to support it and tell a fuller story of, okay, well, let us then serve you a CTV message that explains where the closest testing center is. And the goalpost there is using digital out of home to get that local community and drive additional testing there, while maybe something like in the respiratory portfolio, where that is a larger audience and definitely not a sensitive condition, where we could say, using real-time weather triggers, that the pollen count in your area is extremely high and your asthma might be flaring up, go see your doctor. They will be more likely to take action from that, but including that in that full omni-channel plan and giving that full storytelling is something that is important. And again, going back to that test and learn framework and working together in partnership and using all of the amazing data that they have to really understand who this audience is, what is that cultural and contextual information that's going to help build a strategy around that not only is taking place within the creative of out of home, but then telling that story throughout different mediums.
But yes, we would love all the money, right? But if we take our out-of-home hats off or take our advertising hats off, we as consumers, we enjoy the journey, we enjoy the discoverability, and that's what I love and so passionate. My 20 years in the industry is the medium is what it's supposed to be. So I would say 5 years or less, if we were in this conference, the same story may not have been told. How out of home you see that ad, and then next thing you know, you're retargeted on YouTube telling that same story, and then maybe you're retargeted more specifically with an ad on your phone. I think that that's extremely powerful, and we probably couldn't tell that story, and programmatic allows for that too.
Yeah.
And I think something we talk about a lot that you want to make sure within like a programmatic full omni-channel campaign and specifically in pharma is you want to meet the patient where they're at. If they're not ready to talk to a doctor about it, you don't want to be serving them messaging for, the top FAQs. If they're not ready to be on script, you don't want to be sending them a savings card download. So making sure that we are understanding who that patient population is and where they are within that script writing journey, which Jasmine said is quite long, is important to us. So being able to do that programmatically and using all that first party data and all of the signals that we're getting from the campaign helps deliver that right message to that right person.
So last topic, creative, right? It's extremely important in our space, as you alluded to, but for the longest time, it's kind of been this barrier to entry for pharmaceutical. How have you utilized creative to talk to consumers differently in digital out of home?
So I think, we are very restricted, as I mentioned, with what we can actually say in that. So it's just one part of a broader touch point. We did test QR codes as part of it. I think limited success, that could take or leave that, but we're trying a couple of creative things now with our messaging in terms of making sure we're living within the reminder space, but we're pushing it a little bit, maybe highlighting something that is familiar for the patient, and highlighting talking to your doctor, which indicates that it is a health product. Another thing that we did is we looked at contextual moments where we could play, where we knew that we had other branding elements present. So we have a really great sports partnership where we can advertise within that actual venue with more information about the brand. So you might be hitting the out of home as you're driving to the event, but inside maybe there's more information. One of the events we had a booth outside that was educational. So just increasing sort of our frequency that we're reaching people in ways where we know that we can hit them with broader creative, since our out of home can't do that extreme heavy lifting. I think, as in a lot of cases, but we can't even talk about the category in it. So we really have to make sure we surround it with interesting moments. We have a really exciting event this summer that we're advertising around. We're going to blanket the city, where we have some partnerships and big events going on. Again, where we'll have a more educational presence, but we're reminding you along the way that Breasttree is there and that we're meeting the moment for them, and it's something that they should explore further.
Yeah, so culturally relevant moments, that's where we thrive, right? Geography, Super Bowls here, golf events here, NASCAR events here. Does that make your job a little bit easier for the pharmaceutical side of things creatively?
Yeah, it definitely does help. And I think, again, going back to, I hate to keep saying omni-channel, but really making sure it's storytelling. I think another big thing is social, using social assets, using social influencers that we already know are associated with the brand kind of helps have that brand recognition. So taking something from the largest screen and then getting it to the smallest screen really does help that patient understand, there is an association there, and having that same messaging, I think is key for us and what we've seen success with.
Yeah.
Jasmine, to wrap up here, what's one thing you want everyone in the audience to kind of take away from this conversation?
Yeah, I think out of home has a really strong place to play for pharma. Again, I think about the patient who is not talking about their symptoms with their doctor, that is having a day, and being able to remind them of that option as they're going to their appointment, or as they're having a hard day, or maybe we're talking to a family member of theirs that's heard about the product. it's an important way to reach them, and I think there's more to be done there. And I think, again, used very strategically and within a broader plan, it's a great vehicle. We saw great success in our campaign last year. I'm excited to repeat it again. Again, it's just another tool, a really important one that we can contextualize for our patients, where we know they're at, where we can help them in those key moments.
I'll wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Take it home.
I think that digital out-of-home in general, it's one to many, but I personally find that it's the most personal channel. I think I feel the most connection to it, and I think that most people would say that as well. Pharma is also personal, so understanding, again, going back to that strategy and understanding the patient that we're here to help, I think forming those stories around that, everything that we mentioned here, I think it's a pretty nice fit.
Jasmine, Faryn, thank you guys so much.
Thank you
For having us.